Ever. Not I asked. Psychologist.
Functions. Shane Flint always said that.
It was, what's your face? Curly hair.
Curly hair. Oh, nice. It's just that night.
Well, you and I both know who we're talking.
Yeah, that's all. I'll look and see if his new one.
Okay, if everybody's ready, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Meeting number 3. Public School Division. Stand, singing of our national anthem. I'd like to read our land acknowledgement. Welcome to Grand Yellowhead Public School Division, a welcoming place for people from around the world. I wish to acknowledge that the land on which we gather this morning is Treaty 6 territory and is a traditional meeting ground, gathering place, traveling route, and home for many Indigenous peoples. We also acknowledge Treaty 8 territory, where some of our families, schools, and staff are located, and from where they may be joining in today's meeting located here in Edson. We also wish to acknowledge the Assiniboine-Winniwap Nation and Mountain Métis in Grand Cache. And announcements this morning. Good morning, everyone, again, and welcome to our October Public Board meeting. And this is the current board's final regular meeting before elections next Monday, October the 15th. Maybe not the 15th. Well, today is today, and it's advanced polls in Jasper, but it's Monday the 20th. Everyone will be voting, and I want to take a moment to share our deepest gratitude. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve as GYPSD trustee. And I personally want to thank all of my fellow trustees for their tireless dedication over the past 4 years. As we look forward to the upcoming election on October 20th, I wish every candidate the very best. And I encourage all eligible members of our community to get out and vote to help shape the future of our schools. And finally, our thoughts remain focused on the current ATA labor strike. We understand the significant impact this situation is having on our students, staff, and families. We all respect the bargaining process and sincerely hope for a successful and quick resolution so that our dedicated teachers can return to the classrooms and our students can resume their regular learning. Are there any changes to the agenda, Steve? Okay, can I have someone seeing none? Can I have someone approve the agenda? Trustee Fowler, all in favor? And the minutes of the regular board meeting on September 17th. Were there any mistakes or omissions? Seeing none, they are approved as circulated. We have no delegations this morning, and we will move on now to action items. And we'll start with the first action item, which is an advocacy letter. Fairness and safety in sports. This is 7.2.1. Advocacy letter, Fairness and Safety in Sport Act and Fairness and Safety in Sport Regulation. A recommendation that the board approves a letter to be forwarded on their behalf to Honorable Demetrius Nicolaides, Minister of Education and Childcare, and Honorable Andrew Boychenko, Minister of Tourism and Sport, noting their concerns, our concerns regarding the Fairness and Safety in Sport Act and the Fairness and Safety in Sport Regulations that came into effect as of the 25-26 school year. Can I have someone make that recommendation? Trustee Caputo. And this will be over to Superintendent Scobie.
Good morning, trustees. I was gonna have our Assistant Superintendent, Kara Ashmeyer, just talk a little bit about this particular, the work that is going on in schools first, and then go back to the advocacy letter that you have written as a board.
Good morning, Board of Trustees, Chairperson. The Fairness and Safety in Sports Act came into legislation, and what it requires our schools to do is any female student who wishes to participate in an organized sport, ages 12 and above, must make a separate declaration stating that they were female gender upon their birth. So what this means is an undue hardship for our administration. So in order to protect our students, which is always very important that we create a safe learning environment, it requires principals to have conversations with students who are in a sport that is organized and they are female 12 and above. Then a form must be filled out where a sport or multiple sports can be listed. They keep that on file for 1 year, and it's kept in a secure location which only the principal can access, and then will have to be completed the following year. The reason this is extra work is currently student registration requires a birth certificate. So that does not cover what is required in the legislation for fairness and safety in sports. So it in fact requires a whole extra step for our school administrators to deal with students wishing to participate in a female-only sport. This does not apply to male students, only to our female students.
Great, thank you. Trustees, any questions, any comments, thoughts? Trustee Caputo.
Thank you, and may I say thank you for the advocacy letter about going forward. In the second page you say, and it's bold, and I'm so glad to see that you say section 33 1D of the Education Act. And it says to provide a welcoming, caring, respectful, and safe learning environment that respects diversity and fosters a sense of belonging. Would it be possible if we could put the full clause of that one where it says ensure that each student enrolled in the school operated by the board and each staff member employed by the board is provided with the welcoming, caring, respectful, and safe learning environment that respects diversity and fosters a sense of belonging. Because the word in there is each student. And I was just wondering if that could be possible, that full that full statement could be put in the advocacy letter. So that would be a suggestion that I would make. And thank you for going forward with this. And I'm hoping that my board members will support this letter going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Caputo. We have no problem putting in the full clause from there and adding that in. I think it's great to have it all written out and refer back to the government with the words that they helped to create.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Caputo. Other thoughts, comments, trustees? Trustee Pettit.
So I think the issue is just the double work because we accept the birth certificate upon registration for any student at any level, correct?
That's correct.
And all school divisions are the same in that respect.
Correct.
So it's not like this had to be in place specifically because every school would have the registration and birth certificate at time of registration. So you could technically support the minister's request if something was challenged and just do it that way and skip this whole process.
That is certainly my belief looking at the legislation.
Yeah.
It is unclear why this additional step is required because we do have a birth certificate on file for every student who is registered in the school division. Correct.
Okay, thank you. Other Trustee Caputo.
Well, thank you. So it states in here the fairness and safety in sports regulation imposed detailed eligibility requirements solely upon female athletes 12 years of age or older participating in female-only leagues, classes, or divisions. So that means that every single year that girl is 12 and, they would graduate, if they're 17 or 18. So the parents would have to be signing off either 5 or 6 times. Is that correct?
That is correct, Trustee.
And also would, I don't know, do they sign off on each individual sport? Or is it all encompassing for different?
It can, correct. If we have a student who is 12 and older, who is participating in a female sport, they can be added onto the same document and signed in collective. If they want to participate in a sport that they were unaware when the form was done, the additional sport could be added to that declaration. Correct.
Okay, so then we are asking our parents or guardians of our girls that they're gonna have to sign their name to a document 5 or 6 times while their female daughter is in school. And that's also, it's not right. It's not right. So that's a comment I would say also too, is that you're wanting parents to ask them to sign off on something that they signed off when their daughter was 12, and now you're making them keep going the rest of the years too.
Correct.
Thanks for hearing my comments.
Okay, perfect. Other thoughts? Yeah, okay, I mean, we have the birth certificate, right? And it's not like something's going to change from year to year. If you're female in grade 1, you're going to be the same in 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So I think it's good to bring forward our concerns, and I will be voting to support. Are there any other comments, trustees? I'll read the recommendation again. That the board approves a letter to be forwarded on their behalf to Honorable Demetrius Nicolaides, Minister of Education and Childcare, and Honorable Andrew Boychenko, Minister of Tourism and Sport, noting our concerns regarding the Fairness and Safety in Sport Act and the Fairness and Safety in Sport Regulation that came into effect as of the 25-26 school year. All in favor? Okay, thank you. That's carried. On 7.2.2, a joint advocacy letter. Return of services agreement to support rural Alberta schools. Recommendation that the board approves a joint advocacy letter with the Evergreen Catholic Separate School Division be written to Honorable Demetrius Nicolaides, Minister of Education and Childcare, regarding a proposal for a return to services agreement to support rural Alberta schools. Can I have someone make that recommendation? Trustee Bublick. And this is over to Superintendent Skokie.
Good morning. So we, back in June, Kara and I worked with the Evergreen Catholic administration as we began to work out ideas for how are we going to get very, very specific roles with a high level of training to come out into our rural areas. Evergreen is experiencing the exact same issues that we are. We know that Amy Corser at her time has worked diligently to bring people to our division, to have them employed, to keep them here in hopes that they can provide services. And so this letter really is a joint work between both divisions who are seeing the exact same needs and are really hoping that we can have some advocacy towards, to the government to help out. I know our Assistant Superintendent Ashmeyer was also there and was working. If you have anything you wanted to add to what we were doing.
Just the list that is there for you is really essential for our students and really filling gaps for students and giving them the best opportunity, best education, best success. The challenge in the rural areas for our public to know that there are northern grants for certain things like teachers. In our areas, those are not eligible. We're also bound by our collective agreements, and so having the government of Alberta recognize that the rural areas are significantly different and have different barriers, and this is certainly one, and having, being able to incentivize certain pieces like speech language, occupational therapy is really key for our students to receive the same supports and services that are readily available in urban boards and urban areas.
I think the last part when we did this was, it was great to know that Evergreen, the board passed their joint advocacy letter last week at their board meetings. So they have already approved this and are looking forward to you doing the same. So it was really nice to work with our neighbors on something that was key to both of us in a way that was very, very positive. And these are our people that we spend time with at CAS and other events as well. So it was great to work with them.
Other comments or questions, trustees? And I would only make the comment that I think government always appreciates when you put forward an issue or a challenge that you also come up with a solution or some ideas, because that's what they're looking for too. So I appreciate that that's included. And thank you for working with the CEO of Evergreen Catholic on this as well. Any other questions? Trustee Boblett.
I know when we spoke with them, we had also discussed talking to like advanced education, opening up more seats in universities, colleges for these specialized programs. Is that something too that would have been in this? Like, I mean, I read the letter, but it's something that could have been added to this letter as well as another individual in government to send it to.
I think the idea was that when we talked about who we were going to send this and what we were going to start with, and our best chances for creating something positive and some advocacy was to target just education as opposed to advanced education. Saw that as maybe being too broad at one point in time, and maybe that's some future work that we could do, whether it's on our own or maybe there are others that would like to join us.
And also, Trustee Boblett, it is mentioned under the policy proposal under administration, the fourth bullet down under the black heading there. So
no, I saw that, but it did.
Yeah, they did, they wanted to really target those first pieces, Evergreen 11. So certainly seeing our response to this, it might need to be a second advocacy. They really wanted to look at the focus on what can be done now, which is in the hands of Alberta Education. Advanced education is its own ministry. So Evergreen 11 was really keen to do this first approach.
Okay.
Is this letter also going to be sent to the rural caucus? Just because I know that was something that all of the rural school boards would have been voicing their opinions about as well, because the education minister is heavily focused on the extensive growth in urban areas, Edmonton and Calgary, so they're problem solving in that area, but rural school boards are all facing the same issues across the board. So if we have rural caucus on, on board and our voices being spread and represented that way, we can kind of remind them that we are here too and we are having these issues and we're concerned about equity and education for our rural school divisions.
I was trying to think originally if this was going to rural caucus. I was thinking maybe it was another letter that we had talked about, which is I think our other advocacy letter around the levy that we'll talk about later, but we can certainly add this to rural caucus for sure. Once it's signed, done, and we're happy to add that.
Most of our advocacy letters are copied to PSBA, Rural Caucus, ASBA. It's fine. It's just open communication of what we're advocating for. Any other comments? I'll read the recommendation again. The board approves a joint advocacy letter with the Evergreen Catholic Separate School Division be written to Honorable Demetrius Nicolaides, Minister of Education and Childcare, regarding a proposal for a return to services agreement to support rural Alberta schools. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. 7.2.3, joint use participation agreement with the town of Hinton. The recommendation that the board approves the proposed new joint use agreement between Grand Yellowhead Public School Division and the town of Hinton. Can I have someone make that recommendation? Trustee Caputo. This is over to scope.
Yep. So we so this morning we wanted. I have a couple of bits to talk about, and then I'll turn it over to our Secretary Treasurer Tash Taylor. We worked on this JUPA agreement for a while. Recently, Jordan, the CEO for Hinton, got together with our maintenance supervisor Brian Orge and myself, and in a matter of about an hour, we finalized stuff that had been sitting on the docket for 2 years. So when we're working together, and we have great people who we work with both here in our organization and in the towns and the others that are there, it makes a big difference. So kudos to, and the town of Hinton was happy with our proposals. We worked it out. They've already approved it at the town level, done and has gone through their committee of the whole and their board meeting. So they've approved. We're now going to do our approvals as well. And so it was really great to have people that are willing to work, sit down, focus on an end goal and to finish something off. So it was a very positive time working with Jordan and Brian. And then Ash, do you have others to add?
Thank you, Superintendent, Board of Trustees. This agreement goes from 2025 to 2030, and this is a result of some changes to the Municipal Government Act, as well as some tweaks to the Education Act that required every municipality and school division to have some type of agreement. We're in one of those positions with multiple multiple communities. So these aren't identical, and as the superintendent mentioned, work had gone into making this in response to the town of Hinton and the people there. One of the things I'll point out in this JUPA is around the meeting of council and the division. There is something built in here. I mean, there's nothing precluding the council and board of trustees to meet more frequently, but with specifically around this JUPA to meet every 4 years. As well, there's something called the operating committee, and that is the administrative component. The administrative staff have a commitment to meet at least once every 4 years so that we can keep this updated and speak to any issues and do course correction if we need to. So those are some of the highlights. I mean, there are some things that are standard with usage of the space. We already have joint use agreements in place, maybe not to this extent, but this is really formalizing some of the pieces we've had in place previously. So we'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Just 2 minds.
I have a few questions. One, when I read through this, it sounds like for the most part, our schools can use the facilities for free without charge. Is that correct? And there are special circumstances? So I'd like to commend the community of Hinton for doing that, because that is not the case in all of our zones. And I did see this, and I've never noticed it before, but it probably was always there, disposal of unneeded school sites. Is that something new? Because, and it's different from a school that's been built there and taken off, so this is just reserved lands. And I'm just curious if you can tell me more about that.
On that, I don't have more on that, and I mean, if Tash is not either, it's something that we could take away and bring back to the board in the future. The agreement is, encompasses lots of the different components that are there, so if we need something more specific, I'd come back to it. I don't have an answer for you at this point. Maybe Tash does.
Thank you, Superintendent Trustee. So in here, there's some details around the disposal of schools, and we have our own practices through the Education Act. Furthermore, something that's very new is the Real Property Governance Act, which is new legislation around what does acquisition of new school sites look like. And so that's not all sorted out through government quite yet, because they have a new procedure where school sites will be under the provincial government ownership. But this here covers until that happens. And ultimately, if the Real Property Governance Act is unclear, then this is what prevails. If the provincial legislation is very specific, that ultimately supersedes anything local in terms of contracts.
Yeah, because when I read through that, it just seemed like it was not what we had, what the new act said. And I thought, oh, can we do that? It's interesting, right? So I wanted to see clarity on it. So that makes sense. The language can't be changed until they decide what they're doing.
Correct. And insofar as what might be absent from the provincial legislation, this provides us guidance in how we work with the town on future sites.
I just, on page 38, it talks about the class, like the rooms that can be used. It says 2 classrooms and gyms. So then that would be totally on the advice of the principal about the 2 classrooms. And that means classrooms, that does not mean shop. Oh.
No, I have an answer. That's all.
Yeah, so that would be my question is, it would be entirely, so it would be just classrooms, but not like your CTS rooms or anything?
That's correct. So when we talked with Jordan, we were very clear that the spaces that have specialized and expensive equipment are not being utilized. That's something that we believe in our Hinton for sure, all communities. And so then what we are doing here is the shop, the foods lab, those are things that are kind of off limits for use. We would also say computer labs, though we have really less of those than we would have even 5 years ago, right? We have more Chromebook cards and those kind of things. But those 2 areas, the area of concern that you're talking about, are not included in this, and we were clear. Keith and Jordan, as the CEO, understands that's what we are talking about. So we are talking about, we have a repping course that's coming up in 2.5 weeks, local to Hinton. They're picking 2 classrooms. The school will pick the classrooms that they're going to use so that those students, there are students for the most part, those children can come and do the repping course in our school. So that's an example. They're using 2 classrooms, washrooms that are there, and that's what they're going to use for the 3 hours that they're in the school. That's an example of what we would do, gym usage as we move forward too. But yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments? And I do also agree with the trustee Mines when she says that it's really interesting to see the support in some communities, and every community is a bit unique, but I know that certainly in Jasper as well, the joint use agreement, they're very supportive of the children, and with free pool paths, free so on and so on. And it's great that we are collaborating and cooperating, and we have these TUPAs in place, and that we have exemplar situations, maybe to show other communities. Yeah. So just about that.
So have we started moving forward on the Yellowhead County?
So the idea for Yellowhead County is definitely in the works. Right now, we currently use the ideas from the Edson JUPA. And we are in talks about that as well. And it is interesting, we've been in talks, I talked with Luke Mercier, who is the CEO of Yellowhead County. Recently, there were some changes in the potential to have charges out in Evansburg. And that has been changed back to no charges. So our working relationship with Yellowhead County without a JUPA is going well, but they are excited for us to do that. So we have a number of things on the go with Yellowhead County. This is one of them for sure. And my hope is that not my hope. They expressed an interest, and so do we, about having a working joint use agreement there as well. So yeah, we're working forward with them.
Trustee Caputo.
Thank you. My question is, our joint use agreements, should they be posted on our website? Because this is a public document. Would that be appropriate to have them posted so that if somebody has a question to you, to me, I could say, well, we've got a joint use agreement and this is where you can find it on our website. Would that be, I don't know.
My thought is that we kind of work with the administration from each of the areas, whether it's Yellowhead County or Hinton or Edson. We work through these agreements there, and people come to us to ask questions, and then we take them. I think the agreements stay with us, and they're not something that go necessarily on the website. No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any final comments? Trustee Mines?
I just have to ask, has there been any progress made on the MD of Greenview and our JUPA agreement for Halifax? Because it's 2 years ago in September, last September we were supposed to meet. It's been a long time, and we were supposed to meet about it, and we haven't heard anything. So I know they're going to have a new council or new MD council, other council. So just wondering if there's been anything, but I'm assuming you're going to reach out.
Working forward to it for sure, but nothing has been done now. And I think now that we'll have, I think we've talked about it maybe back in the summer even, as we are going to move forward with some of these other groups where new elections are taking place. Now is our time to reach out, reconnect. We learned a lot from our Yellowhead County meeting. When we sat here as a group, they came and joined us as a group. It was a fantastic learning opportunity that sparked conversations, greater understanding, and a stronger working relationship, even by having just that one where we were all together. I think it led to a lot. I think now it's time to start talking with others as well. And the County of Greenview is definitely one of them that we need to do in the coming months, for sure. April is our timeline for JUPAs to be completed. So it's something for us to move forward on.
Okay. Thank you. All right. No more comments. I'll bring us back to the current recommendation, which is the joint use participation agreement town of Hinton, and I'll read the recommendation again. That the board approves the proposed new joint use agreement between Grand Yellowhead Public School Division and the town of Hinton. All in favor? Right, thank you. And I think I heard a big sigh of relief from Trustee Caputo, because she's been bringing this up, I think, every year for 4 years. So there you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, just got finalized it in the next time.
Yes, thank you.
And the other, and also we have work ahead that is in progress.
We do, for
Thank
sure.
you very much. All right, 7.2.4. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees approves the update to Policy 8 committees of the board. And can I have someone make that recommendation? Trustee Bobilik. And I will pass this over to the chair of the policy committee, Trustee Bobilik.
Thank you, Chair. The policy committee is bringing forward the following changes to policy 8 committees of the board for the board's consideration. Audit committee, we changed the membership. We removed 2 community members and replaced it with 2 members who are not trustees. To the finance and budget committee, we made some changes to the powers in terms of reference. And those changes were with the addition of The removal on 10.2.3.1, review and assess quarterly financial reports, accounts payable checks, automated payments, electronic funds transfers, EFTs. And we added committee will receive information regarding purchases over 75,000 monthly. Also too, we replace, pardon me, the ad hoc committee, student expulsion membership, the addition of the word trustee into 1.1.1 board chair or trustee designate as chair. So I'm hoping that the board, if you have any questions, will approve these changes. Oh, sorry, there was one more change. Thank you, Trustee Caputo. On the membership where it 1.1.3, a designate selected by the superintendent, it now reads superintendent or designate.
Any questions? Nice.
Just curious on the expulsion committee, why we chose to remove, it used to say board chair or superintendent designate. Why did we choose to remove that? Is that what I just heard?
No, we added, we changed, sorry. So on the expulsion committee, 1.1.1, board chair or trustee designate, that was the one change. 1.1.2 stayed the same as one trustee, non-local. And then 1.1.3 is superintendent or designate. It was just a change of words.
Okay.
Superintendent Scooby.
One of the things we talked about when we read through it yesterday, when you read the very first one beforehand, the very first point, which gets confusing. One of the things we talked about, because it says board chair or designate. When I read it yesterday in the committee meeting, it was like, well, that could be anybody. It could have been our assistant superintendent, Trudy Rollins, could have been a designate. But what it really means is that first line only deals with the board. So we put in the word trustee designate to help clarify that. And then the third line has superintendent or designate. So in that case, that would refer to operations in that line. So we just added the word trustee because it seemed to be confusing to go in from board in and out of the board to operations.
And just to, I was confused. I thought you were talking about who would chair the expulsion hearing. So I thought we had taken the option to have a assistant designate from the superintendent chair. But I understand that it was just the membership.
Right. And with student expulsion, because it is a committee of the board, it should be a trustee chair. So that's why we made that change, so it's not so confusing.
Okay. Fair enough, correct. Okay. Any other questions? Right. Seeing none, I will read the recommendation again. The Board of Trustees approves the update to Policy 8 committees of the board. All in favor? Okay, thank you. 7.2.5. Update to Policy 8, Appendix A, Public Members. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees approves the update to Policy 8, Appendix A, Public Members. Can I have someone make that recommendation? Trustee Public. And this is, will be over to our Policy Chair, Trustee Public.
Thank you, Chair. The Policy Committee is bringing forward Policy 8, Appendix A, Public Matters, with the following changes for consideration. We are suggesting that the travel and meal allowance be brought in line with the provincial government and reflect what is in Policy 7, Board Operations. So the changes were currently the rate, it was at 0.55 and we have changed it to 0.57, which is in line with the province. And meals in 2.4.1, subsistence allowance at the rates of. It is now $13 for breakfast, $18 for lunch, and $28 for dinner.
Any questions, trustees? Great, I will read the recommendation again, that the Board of Trustees approves the update to Policy 8, Appendix A, Public Members. All in favor? It's carried. 7.2.6, update to Policy 19, Recognition of Staff. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees approves the update to Policy 19, Recognition of Staff. Can I have someone make that recommendation? Trustee Boblick. And I will pass this over to you.
The policy committee is bringing forward the following changes to policy 19, recognition of staff, for consideration. In section 3, retirement, we cleaned up some of the language and removed the retirement event portion as per the recommendation of the recognition of employees committee. So that is in number 3, instead of celebrated, we have put acknowledged, so retirement will be acknowledged annually by the board. And then 3.1, criteria for retirement. Celebration was replaced with recognition is meant for the employee. And then the rest remains the same. 3.2, we changed. So it reads, May 31st will be the deadline date for the notice of retirement to be received by Human Resources for recognition in the current year. 3.1 is now each retiree will receive a gift from the board up to a maximum of 250. So we removed 3. We had removed that each retiree will receive a commemorative gift. And each retiree will invite one guest to attend in-person retirement event. The recommendation from the Recognition of Employees Committee has decided not to go ahead with retirement celebration. So that is why this section of this policy needs to be changed. And that was on the recommendation of a survey that they had done. Staff.
Questions, trustees? Okay.
Just a comment that the recognition committee wanted to honor the results that came forward from our stakeholders and staff regarding retirement and the lack of interest of attending in-person celebrations. So policy 19 had to be updated because it had written in there overnight accommodations for the retiree and guests. And we still want to commemorate our retirees with a gift. We just needed to update the policy to reflect what our current practice is, and then of course the incoming board can decide however they choose how they want to commemorate our retirees. Thank you, Trustee Bartlett, for those changes.
Other questions? Thank you for the recognition committee for surveying and so on. Right, any other questions? Read it, recommendation again, that the Board of Trustees approves the update to policy 19, recognition of staff. All in favor? It's carried. And 7.2.7. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees approves the update to policy 22, school attendance areas. Someone take that recommendation. Trustee Boblick. Busy today, and I'll turn this over to the policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The policy committee is bringing forward the following recommended changes to policy 22, school attendance areas. In section 8, we are removing 2.8. Or sorry, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 8.6, 8.8. And what is remaining in here is 8.1. 8.2 becomes the principal of the designated school will determine whether the request is approved or denied and inform the parent guardian and the office of the superintendent. 8.3 becomes written appeals will be submitted to the office of superintendent. 8.4, the Office of the Superintendent will issue a written decision to the parent, guardians, and principals of both schools. And 8.5, the decision of the Office of the Superintendent may be appealed to the Board of Trustees. So these changes were recommended by the division and school administration.
Any comments or questions, trustees? Seeing none. Read the recommendation again. The Board of Trustees approves the update to policy 22, school attendance areas. All in favor? Brings us to the end of our action items. Here on my report, I didn't have any correspondence. As this is our last meeting, I did want to comment, a few comments that were included in the announcement to thank everyone for their service. It is interesting. I received a card and it from the Jasper staff group, and basically it's thanking me for my service. So I mean, it is, I think, recognized, trustees, that we are servant and servant leadership, and we are serving our communities. So, and this is actually student artwork. You pointed out that they don't buy cards, they do the kids' work. So anyway, and I think for me, when I was first elected, I think when the new board comes in too, when that first minute when you get sworn in, it's pretty emotional. Like, you know, you take that oath, and you know, to be entrusted with the best interest of all the kids in the division, and that's a pretty powerful and emotional moment. And I think that I'm really proud of this board, because as much as we don't always agree on things, we've never lost sight of that, our moral imperative, and that we are about student learning first, student achievement, students. That's what drives our work. That's why we're here. So I think that we can be very proud and of that. And I mean, there's so many things that we have. I think we can say that we have accomplished. I mean, advocacy has been very huge with this board. In fact, when I think about it, it's our last board meeting, and we're still sending advocacy letters as we go out the door. And we have 2 that are on still to be responded to. So I think we've really been proud to be a public school board. A public board works for the will of the general public and serves the public good overall. And as a public board, we're very proud of the fact that we are inclusive. And so we've done some proud advocacy work in that whole section. We're proud of being rural. I mean, and we have such beautiful communities in Grand Yellowhead. They're all different, and that is something I think that as a trustee, it's a different structure than the town councils, and we do our best as trustees in a community to bring forward those issues from our community, but when all is said and done, we're all responsible for all the kids in Grand Yellowhead. So, you know, so I think that that's been very rewarding work to do. And of course, so there's so many positives and pluses about being a trustee. And then let's take a look at the 4 years we've been here. We started off with COVID right off the bat. This board was making actions to support as best we could our students and our staff through a whole different set of challenges and learning in a different way, and the different platforms that we use to support online learning. That was huge. And then the challenges of all of the natural disasters we lived through in the last 4 years, particularly the wildfires in the east end of the division in Hinton that, you know, are evacuated twice some of our communities and our areas here that you know, had to deal with wildfires. And of course, last year Jasper, where of course there was 358 structures burnt down and so many families and staff and kids affected. Let alone the freeze-ups in the winter that we've had and the floods we've had and the number of times we've had to replace some of our gym floors and so on and so on. So, and you know, we've had 2 different premiers that we have been accountable to. We've had new curriculum that has required lots of support from our operations, our leadership team, and we introduced a new priority. We've been pretty consistent, our 3 priorities: student learning, supporting our staff with leadership and resources, community engagement, and then the 4th priority about system health and wellness. So that was another accomplishment. So it's been an honor to serve. There's a new chapter starting, and I think Grand Yellowhead is in very good hands, and it's exciting as we move forward. Thank you. And then also, then the trustee election video, which one of our goals too was to elevate the work that we do as trustees and to really create more interest in running. And we think we've been very successful because we have 3 election having in 3 of our different zones. And that shows that I think that we have got people interested in the work of trustees and serving kids. And so the big work that is going to need to be carried on. So we're going to show the video once more, and we will end there. If you stand up in an assembly.
And hear the kids singing "O Canada," and it brings tears to your eyes. That is why we exist.
You asked a really good question, is what do we do? We're governors for education in our division.
You are looking as to the role of where the division should go.
We're responsible for the budget. We advocate on behalf of students to the government, build relationships in our communities. That's really important.
We're the drivers, like we make sure that the work is done.
We work with the superintendent to ensure the division runs well.
So if you want people governing and running your school division, you want them to be closest for your community, and that's why each community elects a school board trustee.
Often people don't understand what the school trustee does. People will know about the mayor and council, but school trustees are elected as well, and people often say, well, what do you do? Or they don't realize boards are different. We have trustees from different communities. Grand Yellowhead has 5 communities or 5 zones, and trustees are elected in each of those zones. So there's a board of 7, 1 from Jasper, 1 Grand Cache, 1 from the Lobstick zone, 2 from Edson, and 2 from Hinton. So then we meet and form the corporate board at our central office in Edson. And it's really about democracy.
We are elected by stakeholders, by the people in election. We are directly responsible to those parents.
You have a voice, you have an opinion, and you do have to speak up for what you believe in. However, you also have to listen to what the other board members have to say and what their opinions are. Every decision we make as a team, as a board of 7.
Often decisions made by a board are emotional. You know, we don't always agree at the board table, but it doesn't matter. We have to make decisions with the information that we have. We're just all normal folks that are there trying to do our job and in the best interest of kids.
I think it's more important than just a board because of the responsibility we have to the children and the families.
Public schools are very inclusive. They include everyone.
Doesn't matter your background, your ability, where you come from. Public schools accept everybody.
Every child has the right to education, every child. And it should be the same no matter where you live in the province. And it should be the same no matter your parents' economic status. How do you know that the division is moving along in a way that you want to see it? And I say, you just have to go to graduations. And you see these students, these kids walking across, and they're so excited, they're so eager to get into either college or trades or whatever it is they want to do.
On behalf of kids, serving as a trustee is one of the most valuable jobs someone could do.
And so thank you, Katie. And also, just with the new board coming in, this board wanted to set them up for success. So we certainly have Superintendent Scobie will be working with Dr. Parsons, and they have really some onboarding professional development to set the trustees up for success about their role as governors as soon as they are elected and come to be sworn in. So, all right, thank you very much. And over to Superintendent Scobie for your superintendent's report.
Good morning, trustees. So I know you've read the report as it is, but there are a couple of things I just want to talk about and one thing I want to read. So I was trying to highlight things that we are doing or things that I'm kind of involved in when I do my report. And so one of the ideas that you'll see in here, especially on the first page, is really about communications and relationships with our staff. This has been an incredibly difficult time. We have teachers who are out on with labor action right now, and we did a lot of communications leading up to that. So they knew what was going to happen. They felt they could leave their schools and with us in charge and with the QP staff that are there working. And so we did a tremendous amount of communications. I highlighted two little clips that I did in the first one. We wanted them to know that it was going to be okay and that we were all on the same page, and how when this job action is done, we all come back together to serve the students. That's what we do. And we wanted them to know that when they went out, we had belief in them and that we were on their side. We wanted them to know that we were on the side of students, and that's who we're advocating for. So I did a lot of work and writing and communications, connecting with our team here in central office so that we could make all of those connections back, whether you were an out-of-scope worker, a bus driver, whether you were a QP staff member who were all in schools and working and doing, or whether you were a teacher or a principal who are out with jobs. So those are some of the big things that we did in this last little while. I wanted to highlight the fact that our principals got together and we really changed the focus of what a principal meeting looked like. It is incredibly important that the principals have a stake in what they are doing, and they have a say, and they have some direction that they are helping set. So our principals really did that, and at least half of our meeting this time was directed by principals, run by principals, with professional development for principals, led by themselves. The conversations that happened in this building were fantastic. It was as good as anything we've done because it was done by us, for us. And you could see the leadership and the mentorship that went on throughout the day. So that was really fun. The board planning we are working on, as you know, Parsons and I are working together for sure. We work with Katie, we're getting things organized and done. And when the board orientation happens and we lead up into the first board meeting on October 29th, we will have done a lot of training, talking, the idea of what the first team does, the idea of the moral imperative of trustees and what it is that we are all working towards. The things that we have done together since I started in May will continue on, and that work will continue so that the board knows its valuable role, that each trustee knows what it is that they need to do to contribute to the corporate board as an entity. So that part was important. The last part I'm going to read, because I think sometimes we don't always say the words we want to say, and we hope that you've read them but I think it makes a difference. So I've known the members of our board for many years. As a principal, I've presented to them in the boardroom and I've welcomed them to my schools. As a principal, I've found the board to be open, inclusive, and understanding. They were always excited to listen to my presentations. Some of those were long. Took the time to engage with my students and had a genuine caring about the well-being of division staff and students. In May, I began working more closely with the board as assistant superintendent first and then as superintendent. The board continued to look for areas of improvement in the last 4 months of their 4-year term and ways to meaningfully connect their governance work to the learning and well-being of students and staff. I've seen that this board continues to be committed to their moral imperative and is actively working to create a strong start for the incoming board. Trustees, Granio has been very lucky to have you serve as our board, and we thank you for your service. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. Comments, Trustee Lyons?
Your first paragraph there where you talk about getting a logo from every school and wearing them, that really struck a tenderness with me, thinking, oh my goodness, what a wonderful thing to do. But it made me also think that, you know, I would like to have, and I don't want division to purchase this, but it would be nice to have central offices. We all have an item that had every logo of every school, because we support every school in our division. And I would purchase my own, just so that you know that. I think that's important, and I just thought that was wonderful. And I also want to commend you on working with the principals that way. There are a lot of experts in that group, and it's a lonely job. And when you get to talk about things that are going on that you can't talk about with anybody else and get some ideas from your colleagues, it's invaluable. So well done. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think I did point out to Superintendent Scobie that he is our Chief Education Officer and Chief CEO of the board as well. And as the Chief Education Officer, he's a master principal, so that was kind of an easy fit for you. So we're in very good hands.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll just carry on to the administrative reports. Let's just let me see, would you like a break? Where we are. You usually have a recess break. You want a 5-minute bio break? Okay, we'll come back at 11:15. We'll take a 10-minute bio break. Back to order. Call the
Bad
meeting
girls
back
in the
to
back.
order.
Yeah.
And we are on to administrative reports. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees receive a report on projects, processes, and or programs conducted by the many central office departments since the last public board meeting as information. And you've read Secretary Treasurer Taylor's report. Trustees, any questions? Right, seeing none. On to facilities. Any questions for Superintendent Kobe? Facilities, Trustee Boblik?
Can you speak to the hazmat survey at Wildwood Middle School?
Yeah, so Assistant Superintendent Ashmeyer can for sure, as she was in consultation with Brian on this.
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're going into each room, taking a look at, well, they're dressed. It's not a risk in any way, shape, or form to staff. They're just looking at what is behind the walls and things in preparation of the demolition of those schools in accordance with the agreement to build the new school at Grand Trunk. So it takes about 5 days. So the staff, they are at Wildwood this week, and Wildwood is big enough. There's 2 staff members there, some days 3. And just when they come in to do the testing into the wall, they'll just have those people work elsewhere in the school. And then depending on if they're completed by Friday, then I will also send out to Evansview. And if Evansview wishes to work elsewhere while they're doing it, they're welcome to as well, as was Wildwood staff. And nobody contacted me to say, no, I'm not comfortable, because it is not in any way, shape, or form a risk to anybody in the buildings while it's being done. It's just to determine, again, what these buildings are made of in preparation for demolition after everyone is moved to Grand Trunk.
Okay, will we get a report, like the school division gets a report?
I would say I can't speak to that. I know that these are hired people in prep to help for that demolition. I believe that Mr. Orge would get a report. I'm not sure
So
what
how it's
would be
going to be
available
shared.
or not. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Caputo?
Thank you. I noticed on the report here that we have Harry Collins. Is it possible to get like an update? If that's
sure.
possible. Thank you.
For sure. So we'll currently we are the update for Harry Collins is kind of in 2 areas. So we'll talk about the front entrance area, and then we'll talk about the fence area. So the fence area we are adding into the school. Fence are metal posts and chains that go around the front, the Sunwapta area, and down into the bus lane, so that there will be metal posts that will have concrete inside them, high grade chains that go between, and that will be, it'll look really nice. It's just there, but it's also a protection for the school as well. So that is being done. They're working there today. They were digging holes yesterday, posts are going in, concrete is coming, and then the next step will be to have the painting and the chains that go between each of those posts. So that will all be done. Work is also commenced on the front of the school. If you were to, so on the main entrance of the school, if you were to look there, you would see that there is wood that is covering that entrance. We are now using the main entrance of Sunwapta and in that school. And then the doors are being replaced, the tile is being taken out, and then the entrance is being redone. So that is ongoing work that will last probably for several months. The reason, the biggest reason being is that the doors that are being replaced at the front of the school are ordered, done, and so those all have to come in. And I think there's 6 weeks for ordering and another chunk to get put in. We're looking into the next semester to have them all done. But the work is definitely ongoing and taking place right now. So both looking really good so far.
Thank you.
Caputo.
Thank you. Any other other questions for youth facilities, trustees? Technology, any questions? Technology. Lines
I
and-
don't know if you can answer this, but I was curious whether I know we're installing VoIP phones throughout all buildings in the division. Does installing VoIP save us money?
It certainly is a difference in the phone lines that you have to pay for. Traditionally, you would have to pay for each phone line coming into the school plus the fax line that'd all be there, whereas this will make savings in that case. There's also some real advantages with phones kind of being assigned to a person, so then your phone kind of can move with you, and if you change rooms or change locations, the phone still does, as well as the ability to forward phones onto cell phones if that's something that needs to happen as well. We do that here, so there are a number of things. The other part is that they are then centrally managed, and anything that needs to happen as it changes into the bell and paging system as well, all go together. So you have a digital schedule. The schedule can then be manually managed at the school level, and it's a significant upgrade. And for those of us who have been in schools when we went all the way back to the flick the switch, push the red button, call for the classrooms, the upgrades that have gone over time are, and this is one of the bigger upgrades as well. So very nice and works, and it's just a nice solid system that is there to support the staff.
Okay, any other questions for technology? Learning services, any questions for Ms. Ashenmeyer?
I'm not going to go through everything because I think probably most of it has been affected. Your final dates, your screenings being sent into government. How does this affect you?
So the final screenings, no dates were extended. All of the screenings were complete on the last day of teachers still in our schools, so they were not extended by the government, but I'm happy to report that our schools were well prepared before that Friday, last day in schools. Yeah. So all of the screens have been complete. Our divisional screens, and I have a literacy numeracy support information report for you today, but I will tell you that the math screens for our division were completed. The only ones they were completed for students are highest level of achievement test, the writing, which is tied directly by research to the result that a student will get on a provincial achievement test. They were also completed, just not entered into Dossier, which is our school division's digital place to store those screens.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Right, on to human resources. Any questions for Ms. Rollins?
I just wanted to say that I really do love that drop-in time that you've initiated weekly, because I think a lot of people may have questions and think, oh, I shouldn't call and bug, but if they know that there's an open door and a good time, I think it will help improve communication. And then the other question I had, you're doing ongoing work on driver agreements and bargaining dates. Is that our own drivers employed and not contractors?
That's correct. It's for our current bus driver association.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's my question too about the drop-in.
Oh,
thank you.
May I say on that, trustees and board chair, we are very excited about it. We've had a lot of principals come to it. One of the things that we're working very hard on as an HR department is responsiveness and timeliness. Sometimes when people have a question, it's because they need the answer now, not in 3 or 4 days, because they need in turn to answer their staff who are seeking questions from or answers from them. We've had a lot of principals drop in, a few who stay for the entire session. They will just leave the Google Meet open, just in case one of their colleagues asks a question that they have not yet thought of, but are interested in the answer. We are hoping to build this out to our other labour groups as well and employee groups. so that we have something set up perhaps with payroll and HR to support bus drivers, with 2P members, that kind of thing. So as this gains traction and we see that we are making some improvements, we hope to grow to other employee groups as well.
All right, thank you. And choose of service. Ms. Parser, any questions for Amy? Trustee Mines? Trustee Mines?
I'm just curious, I know that we have Pineapple for Hinton, Gray Cache, and Jasper. Do those kids get the same amount of time as the kids in Edson and the Lodstick area with our own people?
They do, because we have therapy aides in the schools as well to help support that. So, and right now with Pineapple Services, they're receiving a lot of services for our junior kindergarten students that are in session. So they're maxing out and they're receiving so many services that when the ATA labor action is over, then they'll focus on kindergarten and keep seeing those. But yes, with our therapy aides in those places, as well as we're doing a lot of cross training with the EAs. So the EAs that are in our junior kindergarten classes and our kindergarten classes, they're sitting in on those speech sessions too, to learn how speech goals, and to learn how to help those students as well.
So,
I just want to commend you for in your group with the FSLCs offering to support our students through this job action. That is incredible that you guys have offered that service.
Thank you. Yeah, they're actually very, very busy. We just had a meeting, a touch point meeting yesterday, and all of the family school liaison counselors said that their virtual services, they're very, very busy, and yeah, it's just running very, very effectively for all of our students that were currently on caseloads. So yeah, great support. Thank you.
Again, somebody took my question. That was mine too, but that's okay. Also about the navigators, they're also doing a lot of their work too and everything in this aspect.
Yes, like all of our out of scope people. So our best coaches and our manager, they have different mandates. So they're doing a lot of like community supports and kind of what they would do kind of in summertime, like camps and things that are happening at libraries. And then our wellness navigators, they're in the schools doing the regular work. For example, our wellness navigator manager, Erin Wallace, she is doing a little firefighter thing at both junior kindergarten classes tomorrow in Hinton. So they're bringing the fire truck and having all of those things in for our junior kindergarten. So yeah, we're just adapting and shifting and still offering supports for our current students.
Yeah, just on the same again, so it's talking before. How has your screening been impacted by this break? You know, we kick off and your speech, and has that been completed, or how's it going?
It's actually, we had everything really had to be in by September 30th.
Yeah,
so we've gotten all of our screenings in, it's all done, and all of our funding is accounted for.
Perfect.
Yeah,
that's great. Really pleased to hear that.
Questions for Ms. Van Neck, transportation? Questions for Mr. Spalding or regarding communications?
Just as we're wrapping up, I wanted to make just one kind of last final comment. One of the things that has happened since we started, or since I started back in May, is just, you know, a very profound change in this building, and the work that is supported above all. You notice as you go through the list of things that are done, you hear the confidence in the people that are working to support our students, to support the board, this group that is here, that is represented today, and the rest that are not, that are off doing other work. have been fantastic. They each have an expertise in their areas. They bring that expertise every day. We entrust them with the ability to do that work. And every day this group comes and stands up and does that work on our behalf. So one of the things I talked about, maybe not necessarily with the trustees, but I've talked with others, is I've said this is a very interesting and sometimes a weird job. One of the differences of being a principal and being a superintendent is eventually everything comes to a principal and you're the last resort in your building. You might be the person that does. That's not the case here. The team is the group, and the team does the work. The team has the expertise, and we're very lucky with the team that we have. And I wanted you to know that as an outgoing board and as the incoming board comes in, the team that we've established here works hard every day, are experts in their field, and they do everything to ensure in each of their areas that our students and our staff are well served. Thank you.
Yes. 10.2, for literacy and numeracy report. Recommendation that the board receive the annual report describing the literacy and numeracy work taking place in GYPSD as information. And this is over to
Maybe. Yeah. I'd like to pass this over to Assistant Superintendent Ashmeyer. Thanks.
Good morning, trustees, board chair. What you have in front of you is a very comprehensive report. So there are a lot of details, which I think are very important when literacy and numeracy are truly at the heart of student success. So part of this is related to the Alberta education screens that are being completed and are done now, as I shared earlier, for literacy and numeracy. And I just want to bring your attention on page 77 to a little bit about some of the changes that have occurred since we first were mandated to start screening our students. So I want to highlight a few of those. So if you look on page 77, you will see, and again, educational acronyms are abreast of us, there they are. But I want to bring your attention to the one called RAND, which is the Rapid Automation Naming Digits. So this is now an addition to numeracy screening, and it refers to students being shown patterns or numbers and being able to speak those numbers to the screener. So a teacher will hold up the number 7 and say to a student, "What is this?" to see if they know that automatically they know it's the number 7. So this is new and in addition to the screening parts that were already done. So as you can see, those 4 that are there are part of what is done with kindergarten students. If you turn to page 78, you will see the mandatory screens for students in grades 1, for students in grades 2, and then for students in grades 3. So the pattern that I've observed here is we are doing immense screening assessment of students in kindergarten and grade 1. And it's very time consuming. And to understand where our students are is very key. Without a doubt, there's not an educator who doesn't assess and determine which students are managing at the grade level they're coming into and which students need extra help. So there is a robust amount of work that is included in those screens that are mandatory for kindergarten and grade 1. A little less robust in grades 2 and 3. Something of interest for everyone as well here and also for our public. There are intervention packages which Alberta Education provides for the interventions for students in small group activities. So in order to be ideal, the research says 20 to 30 minutes per day in a pull-out group to work on any of the gaps that students have is what will fill those gaps. Funding is provided, but it is somewhat limited, or lacking. And this year, the funding has changed for the 2025-2026 school year. And on page, if you turn to page 79 of your board package, we are anticipating the funding in mid to late October. We're mid-October, it has not yet arrived. This is very similar to last year. The difference this year is that the funding for literacy and numeracy supports will be prorated share of 25% of the adjusted enrollment measure of K to grade 3 students. So in previous years, and I also had to as well this year, give a number report of how many students were at risk in literacy, how many were at risk in numeracy, how many were at risk in both. That was given to Alberta Education and due September 30th. Moving forward, this will be a prorated share and it will be 25% of the enrollment of K to grade 3 students. So I am hopeful that that means that the huge time-consuming report for literacy students who require help, numeracy who require help in both, will be the old way of doing things, and truly that report will not be required. I have had conversations with the literacy and numeracy screening managers and staff, and they've been very, very supportive of Grand Yellowhead. I did receive some help in how do we identify this in the data. The data this year will be presented differently. This year, the data will be done as the provincial achievement tests are on the platform called Veretta. So at this time, and Lyle Lee and Adam Fragamenti and the tech team do not know what the data will look like yet either. We are waiting to see that data and the results and how we will look at that data as a system of a school division. So 2 big changes, the funding, and now it's a prorated of 25% of K to 3 enrollment to support students who need more support in literacy and numeracy. And then also, hopefully the lack of reporting being done in the previous way that it had been. I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, if I might, sorry, my apologies, if you can pause on the questions. I also joined the Alberta Research Network, of which Grand Yellowhead is a part of, and I am the contact for. And for those of you who have been around long enough to know, when we did a research project or initiated one on self-regulation and the work of Stuart Shanker, I still represent Grand Yellowhead in the Alberta Assessment Network. And I just joined on November 6th. I will be listening to a webinar that is saying that they have results. Teachers, bless you. If teachers are using the numeracy intervention packages in kindergarten, they are showing results that are very similar to mass improvement using that package. So I'm going to be going to that, participate in that webinar to see if that is the case. Our teachers are not confident that that numeracy intervention package addresses all of the gaps in number concepts. So I will be excited to be a part of understanding the actual research, the newest research on that. The other research piece included in that webinar says that the screens for kindergarten numeracy are very similar to the Wyatt and the WISC that are being done, as well as the CAT-5. So that's the Canadian Achievement Test, the level 5, the newest, version 5. So I'll have a little better understanding of what the latest research is. Previously, when I presented literacy and numeracy in a report last year, the research on the literacy was not showing any significant gains at that time. So now they're saying there are gains in numeracy, so I will be excited to be a part of that and understand the most recent research for numeracy. Now, I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have any comments that you would like to make, open to anything you have.
curious, that 25% prorated amount, would that be accurate based on our past results in our division? Would that be, are we gonna receive more, or I know that's really hard to ask off the top of your head, but I'm just curious if it would be somewhat in line. And then on that question, are you still going to look at individual school results? And if we have higher needs, I mean, that is something that you guys would, like, will it be distributed that way as well? If you look at the data?
Absolutely. I mean, we need to support the students who need the supports. So they will give us an envelope of funding based it on this prorate. We will look at the results of individual students, which means looking at results of schools and assuring that the schools that have the highest need have a portion, which is what we have done since we've been given this grant funding for literacy and numeracy. So we will continue to do that. And of course, we look at our schools, we look at what they're also using in addition to what Alberta Education provides, things like UFly and Orton Gillingham and the science of reading and the work Jerry Loroway is doing on filling the gaps of number concepts and conceptual understanding. So we always look system, we also look at our schools as well. So my prediction, it will be close. However, I always struggled with understanding their previous funding formula was not black and white. It was some algorithmic, numeric, literacy, numeracy, and both. And in my mind, if you have literacy needs and you have numeracy needs, what does it matter if they have both? So in some way, there was a previous calculation that was included in that. So I would predict that this will be somewhat similar to what we've seen previously in terms of total dollar amount. I would imagine it would be very close to what we have received.
Any other questions? Trustee Boblik.
Okay, so my understanding is the research on the literacy. So were they saying that there were gains, but they actually found out that there weren't based upon what teachers and were submitting and
based on, so the research on literacy that was completed, Dr. Giorgio and his team, so literacy researchers, did a research project with the Alberta Research Network. And they were not able to say definitively that the literacy intervention packages that Alberta Education provides for free were having a significant impact on decreasing the gap in literacy.
So they were saying that they weren't finding anything beforehand, but now on numeracy, they're saying that, yes, they are seeing.
That is my understanding and in the invitation to join the webinar. And that's why I'm very curious to hear the details of, who was their sample. I want to know the research question, the methodology, but that is my understanding of the intent of the webinar, is to share that they have researched and have shown that use of the numeracy packages are making a difference on closing the numeracy gap in kindergarten.
But you're not hearing that from teachers? You had said something about hearing something about from teachers that it actually wasn't.
Teachers were finding that the package itself was not robust and specific enough. They didn't feel that it was making huge gains. But again, that was giving the overall K-3. So this research is very focused on kindergarten. So I'm very intrigued to hear the results of that and the methodologies of that research.
Thank you.
No, I just wanted to say it's great that you're going to be part of that research, because being involved with that will be great benefit to our division as well. To see what is happening and how you've explained it. And so, yeah, that's really good, really interesting. Thanks for all that information. Very informative.
Great, thank you very much. 10.3, financial update. Recommendation to support the culture of accountability and transparency. Regular updates are provided to the board regarding fiscal and other business matters. This is over to Superintendent Scobie.
Thank you. We're gonna use Tash Taylor, our Secretary Treasurer, to give us this update this morning.
Superintendent, Board of Trustees. I won't reread the report here. I'll just go through some of the highlights and activities that we're undertaking beyond the day-to-day business operations. So the first one, I guess, looking back, as you know, the audit is will be coming up next week, October 20th to 24th. Now this happens in phases. We did the preliminary audit in September, and they do some testing, and then we go back, do a bit of work to prepare, and then the big audit takes place October 20th to 24th, and that's taking place. The new board will be the lucky recipients of the audited audited financial statements, and then the audit committee, and then the board on November 25th. So if we move into the present, and there's some things under looking ahead, which are now the present, but for the sake of conversation, as you know, with the labor action, we know that government will be holding back funds or clawing back money per the funding manual. We just don't know how much that's going to be. There's also going to be back pay factoring in, and a whole formula around this that no one really knows at this point what that looks like, other than we know money is going to be taken away, but also money is going to be given. And so this year is a unique year, and really dependent on how long the strike lasts. So that's one of the unknowns currently. Maybe I'll lead into, I have it at the end around, I guess, the revenues tying into this. We now know the enrollment is down for us, about 92 students. And we don't have our funding confirmation yet. Alberta Education has to do their audit per student, but we're probably looking at between $500,000 and $600,000 less in funding that we had projected. We had projected almost a stable enrollment, about 3 extra students, and in fact, we have 92 fewer. So it's how much less funding we're going to get. It depends on the individual profiles of the students. If some have higher needs or less, and those kinds of things, Alberta Education currently is auditing, and then they let us know. From that, once we get that financial confirmation, we have to go back and tweak the budget and provide a fall update. So that some decisions are going to be made, or have to be made, certainly on our side. The administration side will do our best to soften any changes in that regard, but less funding, higher needs, and the desire to support every student to the maximum is always a juggle. So, and I can speak a bit more to that in a moment. The next thing that we're working with, again, you're very familiar with the Yellowhead County Improvement Levy and some of the information that came back from your advocacy. I did contact the Assistant Deputy Minister of Financial Services with the department to get some clarity on what this means. It's a hefty levy, and something that's very unusual. There's only one other school division in the last 20-some years that's had something like this in Wainwright, and it was much less. It was nowhere near the amount we're talking about here. So this is new territory, and it does set precedent. And our concerns were expressed to the Assistant Deputy Minister. Now the thing is, this is going to show up on the audited financial statements because it is a bill that's unpaid, and it's a liability that we hold until we get direction otherwise. And so this sits on the financial statements until 2056, and something that's going to be drawn down year after year unless something changes. So that's just notification for you, and that we're trying to work on the internal side here with the administration because, again, it's something very new. The insurance policy, this is for your information. As governors, you need to know that we're insured as a division and our renewal process is underway with the new policy to take effect November 1st. So there's quite a bit of information to provide to the insurer, and we're undertaking that currently. Carey College High School, we estimate the damage to be between $130,000 to $150,000, and this includes some significant and needed safety upgrades. Now, the insurance deductible is $100,000, and so after some thinking about this, we decided to keep this, to absorb the loss is what this would be called. And what it is we're not going to file a claim through insurance, and there's a list of reasons for that. But namely, we want to reduce any negative or adverse effects on our risk profile. So even though the amount would be very small, we then add one more incident to our profile. And so we didn't think it's worth the cost in the long run. Not only would our premiums go up in perpetuity, but it's, we become that school division. What's the risk of something bad happening? And well, we already know we have some tendency in that area. And so this was just a mitigation factor. Now, on the good news side, we can pursue subrogation, which is the division, and the insurance company would do this, but we can do it ourselves, is essentially pursuing the insurer, the driver's insurance company, to reclaim the funds. Now, if we had gone through an insurance claim, the insurer would do that directly with the insurance company, but our insurance company will help us do that. And then, of course, we weighed the idea around how much time and effort to recover $150,000, is it worth it? And in the end, really what we're looking at as the driving factor is stewarding public funds. So we could just absorb it, say, yeah, pay this $150,000, $130,000 and be done with it. But we do think it's important because we're, like I said, dealing with public funds, and there is an opportunity to recover or recoup that damage. And in the last bullet here, which I spoke to briefly, was around the enrollment count. With that, those are the big highlights currently, and I would be happy to answer any questions or provide further detail.
Trustees, thank you. Questions?
Thank you. You said that current enrollments are showing that we've gone down by 92 students, and you're roughly saying that that's about $500,000 to $600,000 that we would be seeing as a drop, correct?
Correct. Be confirmed.
Okay, to be confirmed. Okay.
Right. So some will say, well, how much is a student worth in the terms of financial revenue? And anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 is. So it depends on, like I said, the profile of our individual students and their specific needs. We don't have that yet.
And I noticed in here that you had said, and that's on page 82, right at the top, it says Alberta Education has confirmed funding for all other staff will remain, allowing us to avoid laying off employees and contractors. That's good to know that, and our members, they do know that the money is there, that they will be working.
That's right. Thank you, trustee. That's correct. And the superintendent has reinforced that messaging directly with emails. And so essentially it's the funding that's being pulled back or clawed back relates only to the ATA members and no other staffing is implicated.
Okay. Questions? Trustee Baldwick?
With the Yellowhead County Improvement Levy, we were given two options in which to pay. Is there possibly a third option that was on the table?
When we spoke, Luke Mercier, CEO, had said potentially they would be they could look into something that may be a middle ground towards this, a partial payment of things, and then taking the remainder and putting it over a number of years. Something that was still in the works that we have not pursued any further as of yet. as we did this work and then we began to work with our Secretary Treasurer, our focus has kind of changed on, is this a bill to be paid and are we going to be told? And if it so happens that we do, and we are now breaking, relatively new ground in the province, then we'll go back to Yellowhead County and ask them for what are some potentials. Especially around the idea that in the past, it was around that $350,000 mark and what that could look like. So that is certainly in our future to continue to work on. We want to see where this work is going to get us right now. So that's kind of our focus for now, but I have not forgotten that that was an offer right over there the other day.
Because otherwise it's 2056 that this is sitting on the books.
Yeah, it's a long time, for sure. And so we agree, and I think that if it is a payment to be made, as our board chair said many times, if it's a payment to be made, we'll make the payment. If there's a better way to do that, I think there would be something that would reduce the difference between the $737,000 initial and the $1.3 million total. What is that? Sorry, Secretary Treasurer attached to.
Thank you, Superintendent. Just to be clear, whether we pay it up front or we pay it over 25 years, it still shows on the books because it's a levy over that period of time. So so we might put a cash outlay up front. We could pay the however much, depending on the negotiation, but it still shows as prepaid up into because it's a levy that covers 25 years. One of the questions I have for government is for the department was, where does this money come from? Because if it's operating money, that's very specific to student education programming. If it comes from facilities funds, well, that's funding to allow and enable the operation and the provision of said student programming. And if we get into capital, capital has very specific categories around what that means and whether we dip into capital reserves, which I think there was an allusion to that in maybe the minister's letter. Again, there's very specific purposes for dipping in or utilizing capital reserves, none of which are paying for municipalities' infrastructure. And so that's really the clarity is, if you make us pay this, okay, well, which pot of money are we allowed or supposed to take this from? And that's really a direction that would be helpful in addition to the work you've done.
Well, and it's so interesting, this has only been ever one other school division ever and a total small amount. And so I'm very glad that we were persistent in raising the question and asking the questions and pursuing this and making our different ministries aware. And
if I might add, Madam Chair, in speaking with the municipality, I didn't speak with the CIO, I spoke with the person who's sort of the general manager of facility infrastructure, and to clarify whether or not this was an error or not, and because it's so unusual. And of course, they believe that it's well within their legal rights, to quote them, their legal rights to pursue this or issue this under the Municipal Government Act. And so we may even look at our own legal opinion on that. And if $738,000 is quite a bit. And again, that's an option open to us if we need to.
Perfect. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Information. Okay, brings us to our trustee committee reports. Any connection to governance work plan throughout the month? Charter schools professional development session.
Trustee Caputo.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a webinar that the Alberta School Board Association had, and they had a Thomas Huck from he's with U.S. Education, and he says the charter schools, that they do not charge tuition, and they must accept everyone. And if they're oversubscribed, they use a lottery for the students. Currently, they're sitting at about 8,000 chartered schools in the US, and 3.8 million students attend chartered schools. And they said that they're smaller, and I guess for class sizes too and everything. What happens is that they have to have a renewal process that they have to go through every 3 to 5 years. They've been saying that, what is it here, that if students are not doing well, they're pushed or they're counseled out out of the chartered schools. Charter schools would be a choice, and it says that parents are more engaged in chartered schools, and they also said that they have high standards for chartered schools, and that's what I have. I have some other notes here, but I'm going to see what Trustee Fowler has for her notes.
Okay, just to add to that part that you added there, we're talking about in the charter schools as well. Of course, they get government funding, but they're run privately. And yes, and they have to have their information in by October. And the schools get paid on a given day once the count goes in. And that is when, as Trustee Caputo referred to, was then the charter schools will encourage students to leave. They're counseled out, the low performing students. And then what happens is they don't replace those students. So they have all that extra money that they use down there. Also, one other thing that's similar to, actually with Alberta, but at any rate, the certification of teachers, they're not necessary. They have to have a college degree, but not necessarily an education degree. And the charter schools will support them to get an education degree once they work within there. And previously, they did have them for the requalification. Some of the states, actually, it's 10 years. Others were left for 15 years, and it proved to be problematic because they performed poorly and financial irregularities. There was a need for greater accountability. I think what the whole thing is with this, and there's lots more that we have discussed about this, is that, and it was really good because it's something that we can compare with what is happening in Alberta with charter schools. And in fact, Marilyn Dennis took the time during the question period of who is the president of Alberta School Board Association, and was able to give comparisons to what was happening in Alberta and what was happening in the States. So I think that just to point out that it's really important that as governors that we engage in these information sessions to find out what is happening and then compare it to how it will affect us in Alberta. Do you have something to add on to that?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that update information. Board Policy Committee.
Yes, we met yesterday, and we will be bringing forward 2 policies for the new board to approve October 29th at their first board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Recognition of Employees Committee. Anything there? Board Planning Seminar Committee, things are well in good hands. Board Negotiating Committee, nothing. Board Finance Committee.
We met yesterday as well. We did a lot of work on our agenda yesterday and how we want it to run in the future. And then during the Finance Committee, we made suggestions to our new Secretary Treasurer, upgrading some general ledger lines that will align with what the new board will need.
PSBA, anything?
Not really anything. The advocate did come out, and they also, as a reminder, and it will be the new board, because they did not have PSBC in October because of election, and that there will be recommendations for the conference, the fall conference, which will be occurring in November, and registration, which will have to occur as soon as we know what's happening.
Thank you, and same with ASBA Zone 2-3. Nothing to report, and the fall general meeting information is available. Future business meeting dates, October 29th will be the board meeting for the new board, who will then be sworn in, and the first public board meeting of the new board will happen that same day, as well as the committee of the whole. Any notice of motions? Future agenda items? And nothing in closed session. And I would ask someone to adjourn final meeting of this board. All in favor? All right, thank you, everyone. It's adjourned, and we will pick up committee of the whole after.